Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning to our friends out on the West Coast. Thank you so much for joining us for this virtual meetup of the Cristina Network. My name is Scot Henley, and I serve as the Executive Director of the National Cristina Foundation. I want to start by saying on behalf of our staff and board of directors, I hope that you and your families are safe, healthy, and doing okay as we all ride this thing out together, separately, but together. Today I'm joined by my colleagues, Brian Barrett, who's our Director of IT out in the Seattle area. He's making this whole presentation possible. Also, Senior Director of Strategy and Development, Sue Krautbauer, who is in Minnesota, and Program Officer Meredith Wynn in Connecticut. I'm here in my home office in New Hampshire. We're all in our home offices, of course, but I'm about a couple of hours north of Boston. So microphones are going to be muted for this presentation, but we encourage you to add comments along the way, post your questions in the chat box. Just click chat if you mouse over your screen, and it'll open up the chat box. You can enter your questions or your comments in there. We'll get to them at the end for sure. And just bear with us. We have, just like the rest of humanity, switched to Zoom as our new platform. And so this is our maiden voyage, and bear with us if we hit any snags, okay? So, so why are we here? We are here because digital inclusion has never been more important. The virus crisis has shuttered schools, businesses, community centers, libraries, and confined people to their homes. But those homes aren't equal. More than a fifth of American households don't have internet-connected computers in their homes. Millions of seniors are cut off from healthcare and family. Students are cut off from school. Others are cut off from skills development, banking, commerce, community. And many Americans in this economy don't even have a home at all. This pandemic shines a stark light on the digital divide. And so we're gathered here on this call to respond to the urgency of today and also prepare for the challenge of tomorrow. National Cristina Foundation will soon be changing its work a bit to better support yours. So again, thank you so much for joining us. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen, and with any luck, we'll be able to launch right into a slide deck here. So how are we looking? Thumbs up? Good. Great. So basically, I thought it would be best for us to start off just by looking backwards first. Many of you, I would say, probably don't know a whole lot about the National Cristina Foundation. So just to give you a little bit of context, back in 1984, we were established, and our co-founder, Bruce McMahon, had a daughter with cerebral palsy. Bruce was a very successful Wall Street executive, and Christina's whole world, Cristina was his daughter, Christina's whole world was opened up when she was granted access to technology by her teacher, Yvette Marin. And Yvette and Bruce together co-founded the National Cristina Foundation. And now, all these years later, hundreds of thousands of computers have been placed in the hands of practitioner organizations like yours, working to help people achieve their full potential. We're really proud of the work that we've achieved over the years, the impact we've made, and we're really proud to support you as you make an impact as well. And so the Cristina Network is basically a national group of practitioner organizations who are using technology to help with skills development, for education, for granting access to job opportunities and communication, lifting people up all around the country. It's your work. And there are about 1,300 organizations that have been involved with the National Cristina Foundation, spanning an incredible array of subject areas, whether it's veterans or homeless or folks with disabilities, refugees, economically disadvantaged, and on and on and on. The common thread is digital inclusion. That's the thing that ties us all together, and that's what we're all united behind. Now, we may only be known to you as the computer people, the folks that once in a while get you a laptop donated at your location, or once in a while, maybe even a few hundred laptops. But that's what we've become known as, and we believe that we can do a whole lot more beyond that. And so we've been doing some thinking, and we've been taking a deep look at our work, our current work, and there are some issues that have led us to think about what more can we do. For instance, our support for practitioners. Some organizations in larger cities with a more robust donor community around them actually do get used computers donated through us on a regular basis, and that's fantastic. Others may have been involved for a few years, and because they might be in a more rural area, may not have received anything. And so the support for our practitioner partners has been wildly erratic, and both in frequency and in consistency. Also, we've been thinking about the future of the device landscape. With planned obsolescence by the manufacturers, laptops and Chromebooks and so forth, they're getting harder and harder to refurbish. We don't know where the device landscape is going. And so to continue down that path of hooking our entire mission and focus on devices alone is kind of risky. And so we need to think about how better to position the organization. And then also, like I said, hunger for wider impact. We want to make a wider impact than what we're doing now. I know we're capable of it. And so that's been getting us thinking. And so, last year alone, we placed about 7,000 computers. Maybe going back a decade, we placed as many as 50,000 computers. But over the last few years, we've been thinking about the ROI, the cost of doing this work, and whether there's a way to focus our work that has wider impact and delivers more impact for the amount of effort and resources put into it. So our board of directors got together back in November, and we met in Kansas City, which is a very successful, vibrant digital inclusion community. And we've settled on sort of a broader set of areas that we'll focus on. And there are these. Number one, nobody is telling effectively, nobody is telling the broad story of digital inclusion on a national scale. There are many players, like our friends at the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, Digital US, and on and on and on. But really, nobody has put the effort into making it a top of mind issue. If you ask anybody, do you know what digital inclusion is? They may not know that it's devices, it's internet connectivity, and it's the skills to use those tools to improve your lives. That's really critically important if we're all going to succeed in the future. So we'll be working hard to build national awareness, to make it top of mind. We're developing a marketing and PR and social media strategy around that. And so we hope to make great headway on that in the very near future. Also, number two, and this is why we're here today, our goal is to strengthen the work of practitioners. Like I said, there are other players in this space who are moving the ball forward. NDIA is really focused on broadband and on policy and research, and that's fantastic. Digital US has just sprung up, focused on workforce development. But I don't believe there's anyone better built and better suited to help support the work of boots on the ground, folks like you who are driven to make an impact in your communities. We have the network already in place. Certainly we want to grow that network of practitioners, but if we can understand better from you what's holding you back and what's a barrier to success for you, perhaps we can mobilize and figure out ways to help you get more effective and overcome those barriers. Because I think impact at scale will be achieved if we help to support you in your work. And then lastly, building a financially sustainable organization. We were very fortunate that when our co-founder, Bruce McMahon, passed away in 2017, he very generously left us an extraordinary gift. And so we now have, excuse me, we now have an endowment that helps to support our work every year. It doesn't cover all of our operating expenses, especially if we want to grow and broaden our impact. So we need to figure out how to develop a robust fundraising engine go after large corporate support, big foundation donors as well, so that we can do a better job of elevating national awareness and helping to support you as well. So that's what came out of our recent retreat, and that's where we're heading in the future. Now, how we're going to get there? The original plan was we're going to do some research, we're going to design programming based on what the findings show us. We're going to carefully and thoughtfully rebrand the organization to fit the subject area and be more relevant, and then, at some point down the road, launch this national initiative. But as I'm sure you have all kind of faced in the last few weeks, the world changed. We've never faced something like this before, and it certainly, working around digital inclusion, it caused us to just, jump on the brakes and focus our effort entirely, or predominantly on immediate response. How can we help now? Because the need is urgent and acute. We hear from practitioner partners every single day that they're looking for devices. They need help. And so it's time for us to rise to meet the moment to support you. And so here's what we're doing right now. It's moving so fast. But just roughly 2 weeks ago, we quickly stood up a simple web page that you can access by going to donatetechnology.org, which represents our corporate and governmental call to action. We need now tremendous supply to enter the pipeline. If the Los Angeles School District needs 40,000 computers, and if Philadelphia and Baltimore have killed their remote learning initiatives because of massive inequity, we need to solve that, and it's not going to be solved through onesie-twosie donations, especially when people are confined at home. So we need large corporate entities. We need local, state, regional governments to look into their supply and work with us to get more supply into the pipeline. So we are super focused on that right now. We are partnering with the National Digital Inclusion Alliance to get the word out. I know there's a webinar being presented on Thursday with the National League of Cities as well, where we'll be getting the word out there. Whatever you can do to help support getting the word out about donatetechnology.org will only, rise the tide for all of us. It's a tremendous acute challenge that we're trying to solve, and we certainly can't go it alone. Now, we're also working with an ad agency that was just selected out in California that is going to be quickly, fingers crossed by the end of this week, is going to stand up a really robust, well done, super polished microsite at donatetechnology.org, so it looks the part and is worthy of large corporate attention. And so we're in the mad dash to stand that up right now. And so hopefully we'll be able to share that news with you later on this week, that it's up and live. And in your efforts, you can point people to that as well. So as I said, we're here because we're focused on not only the crisis response, but this new push for the foundation to do a better job of amplifying the work of digital inclusion, and also supporting the practitioners working in communities like you. And so we are going to be launching, well, let me back up. We need to learn from you, basically. We need to understand the issues on the ground. And so we are going to be looking to you to ask for a small chunk of time, so we can understand the challenges that you face, not just today in this strange moment in our history, that we're all feeling this anxiety and the challenge of today, but then also, how are we going to work together down the road in solving what will continue to be a persistent digital inequity problem? And I just want to pause and say that we totally acknowledge that we're asking at a particularly challenging time. We had much internal discussion about whether this was the perfect time to conduct this research because of how acute the need is, or is it the worst possible time because obviously we're all stretched, we're all focused on getting our own house in order and trying to take care of our families and do our work. But we opted to go ahead with it. And so I hope that you'll understand that in our future work, we need to make sure it's informed by good data, and we'd love for you to participate. And so what does that look like? Okay, so tomorrow we're going to be launching a national research effort to better understand the landscape. It's not just going to be, sent to the Cristina Network. It's going to be across the digital inclusion landscape. So, local and regional leadership and digital inclusion, libraries and other institutions like that, and of course practitioners. And so that will be happening tomorrow. That survey is going to be digging into the challenges that you face in your work, and as I said, the roadblocks to success, and not just today, but just in general. We're also going to be holding a series of virtual town halls. I know this is a one-way conversation, and we wanted to set it up like this so we could just get this information out. We'll address some questions in chat, but we're going to be doing several virtual town halls over the next 2 weeks where we will absolutely be listening. It'll be moderated by our research partner, and there'll be a series of questions, open discussion. We want to hear from you, so look for information on that soon. And then there'll be a follow-up survey to validate our findings and to help us arrive at a final report, which we will of course share with our community later this spring. Now, to operationalize that information, once we have great data to work with, we will be growing our team to help bolster our effort. Our new colleague Sue Krautbauer is our first hire in marketing, communications, PR, and development. But we'll also be adding a director of programs to take the research findings and bring that programmatic work to life. That'll be happening later this spring as well. And so, I've been asked several times, so what does the future hold? What does it look like? And I don't know. We have some hunches, but that's why we're doing this research, so that we can better understand the landscape and hear from you. So, but I think that there are some things that are going to be low-hanging fruit that I think will yield great benefit. For instance, evolving National Cristina Foundation to become a national hub for practitioners to find resources, to connect with colleagues across the country, and to learn from each other. Playing the role of connector and convener has been a really successful thing for us. Like, for instance, with our nonprofit computer refurbisher community, that bubbled up from within our Cristina Network a few years ago, because we recognized that all across the country, there were similar organizations in the same fight, trying to do the same thing, but in wildly different ways. And so by bringing that group together, it's been amazing to see how they've learned from each other, shared best practices. They're so generous and forthcoming with tools of the trade and even sort of the inner workings of operating the businesses. It's been fascinating. I bet that in the future there'll be other communities that bubble up from within our practitioner network, like-minded, similarly focused organizations that we can convene. Now, I want to say that donated computers will absolutely still be part of what we do. But the way we describe it is that we've been flying that one flag over the years of computers, but now we're going to be focused on the full spectrum of digital inclusion, of skills development, internet access, and devices. We will be ultimately working towards making the donation platform on our website, the process totally hands-off and self-serve for the donors to be connected to recipient organizations. That's a little ways off. We will be coming back to you at some point down the road to get your feedback and input on that process, but it's still going to be part of what we do. Okay, and of course, as I said, research is what's going to drive all this in the future. So yeah, so that's the ask. We would love for you to participate in the survey. We acknowledge that we're asking in a tricky time, but help us learn how we might be able to support you. And we would be really grateful for your participation. And so that's it for the slides. I think we'll pause there, and we'll see what bubbled up in chat, and I'll turn it over to Sue Krautbauer to see what kind of comments and questions you might have.
Well, good day, everyone. Appreciate very much y'all taking time out to be here. Some of the questions that we had, Scott, that I wanted to bring up to your attention here were as follows. We had a couple of individuals. One was Christian Mendelson was thanking us for putting this together. So thank you for your kind words, Christian. Appreciate that very much. Again, getting the community together, I think, is almost as important as all the work that we're trying to do, and indicative of what we're anticipating going forward, being more connected together. We had a question from Mark Casper as well. He was wondering, Scott, whether or not there would be a link to the National League of Cities that other town hall. Is that going to be able to be made available to our partners here in the Cristina Network?
Good question. I just was added to the panel today for Thursday's webinar. And so I'm sure that through Angela at National Digital Inclusion Alliance, who's co-hosting, that'll be made available. And if someone could just scribble that down on my team to just remind me to do that, that'd be great.
Got that. We had another question that came through with some questions about, do we have any idea what the future of that work might look like as we're changing direction and broadening our scope? What would that work actually look like?
Yeah, I gave a little preview of some of the things that we've been thinking about and seeing the success of the refurbisher community. And it's not a stretch to think about the other types of groups of organizations focused on similar things, like Mark as an example focused on taking care of our veterans. There are probably 100 organizations around the country with a similar focus. What a great way to get aligned behind one cause and learn from each other and get better and better. I could see that definitely be part of it. I also look at just other like national program offerings. Like if this is just a hypothesis, but if we find that barriers to success that are common among practitioner partners are like, in local communities, digital inclusion efforts aren't gathering steam because maybe we find out that there's a need for skilled meeting facilitation. And it's that weird kind of like one-off thing that, okay, so if we solve that at scale, we might be able to grease the skids and get some movement going in communities all across the country by designing some national programming around that one thing. I'm really looking forward to the findings that come out of our research, because we could go in with our own, opinions, but really we're going to learn from you and build it out from there.
Okay. Just a quick aside to everyone here, if you're not familiar with Zoom and you take your mouse and you kind of squiggle down at the bottom of your screen, you'll find a bunch of selections, one including chat. If you've got some questions, you can just type right into the chat and we'll get those pulled forward for you. Another one that came in here was, does National Cristina Foundation, Scott, do you envision becoming any type of a grant maker?
Not directly, but I do see a future where we, together with our network, could go after large corporate or large foundation funding. Let's say we find 6 different cities that could benefit from having some community, somebody grabbing the reins and trying to lead through to success. Perhaps we could go to a national funder, serve as quarterback. Funding could flow through us into communities and support efforts already going on in those areas. I could see that. I don't see us directly becoming a grant maker. I wish we had the resources to do that, but we're going to find other ways to support you all.
Okay, just pardon me while I go and I look again here at the chat, make sure that I catch everybody. Let's see here, I've got one that says, how can we support what you are doing? So I'm assuming that's how can they support or what National Cristina Foundation is. Are there any particular ways that that our partner network can help us do this acceleration?
Yeah, I would say that right now it's using your networks to point attention at donatetechnology.org. The needs are so great all across the country. If we can leverage our collective, PR capacity and marketing capacity to get more eyeballs on that, It's not about the onesie twosie donations. It's about moving corporate America. Now I understand that corporate America is taking it on the chin, just like all of us are. But now's the time to strike. We have to. And so if we can get more local and regional government eyeballs and corporate folks looking at donatetechnology.org, that would be really helpful. Now, I'll also say that one thing that we're going to be adding to that site today is a one-pager with information on how to talk to your local and regional governments about this issue, about ways you can elevate awareness. Like, for instance, many cities all across the country are doing daily briefings on the coronavirus. Well, what if whoever is doing that daily briefing also says, hey, there's an acute need for computers in our community. You can help by contributing surplus equipment to a local refurbisher such as blah, blah, blah. I think that there are ways to elevate awareness that aren't just about social media, but about sort of working through other channels.
Mm-hmm. Another question that came in was asked, how many organizations in the network are still refurbishing with staff and volunteers? It didn't say whether that was all inclusive or whether it was just during this stay-at-home mandate. So I'm not sure how that clarification is, but maybe you could kind of hit both.
Yeah, it runs the gamut because every community is different right now. I mean, many employers have shut down, many are operating on a reduced scale. Some members of the refurbisher community have gone on offense and gotten officially deemed as essential. I know here in my state, in New Hampshire, the guidelines for stay at home versus not are really, really broad, and there's a case to be made for many segments of the collective workforce, whether you work in education or a technology or what have you. I would suggest taking a look at your state or your local area's guidelines on essential versus non-essential to see if what you need to do to be deemed essential, or just to know even better like where you fall within that. But it's hard to say about how many are operating at full capacity and how many aren't. I have heard from folks like at Free Geek up in the Pacific Northwest. They had their corporate volunteer program kind of dry up because big volunteer providers like Amazon, for instance, they shut that program down and disallowed their employees from doing things like that. That was a couple of weeks ago, and now it seems like it's an eternity ago. But I think everyone's kind of dealing in their own individual situations.
Okay, and I think this was a tie-on. It came from Dave Sevic, pardon me, Dave, if I'm butchering your name. And please tell us about your COVID workplace precautions. I don't know if that is just general or whether that's to the refurbishing. I do know that our after members have been sharing amongst one another best practices on how to keep their volunteers safe. But do you want to maybe either point them to after or answer that question?
Yeah, I mean, for us at the foundation, we're a virtual organization anyway, so we're all, hunkered down in our own home offices. And I'm sure, like everybody else, trying to control our kids from jumping around when they're on a national video presentation like this. But yeah, I would love to see if there's a way that we can maybe, I know, Dave, you had a really good perspective on this, kind of like treating it from the South Korean model, like assuming employees acting like they had it, assuming like, how can I say, acting as if they had it to protect others. So being super careful in their own social distancing practices, washing their own hands, being extra careful. But yeah, I wonder if there are, and guys, if you could scribble this down as well. I wonder if we could share, for instance, Dave, his workplace, guidelines with other members of AFTER so that they can see it as well. That might be helpful.
Okay. Another question that came through was.
Oh, it looks like Dave already shared it in the chat. Well done, Dave.
Oh, beautiful! Nicely done, Dave. Anticipation, I love it. Another question that came through was, can we, National Cristina, create a short video targeting CEOs, government officials, etc., with message to them that then can be shared throughout their local connections and their local networks?
Yeah, love it. Yes, let's do it.
Great idea.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
There, what I might point them to, and we can certainly put this out onto the web, it's out on the social media. I believe it was on the 12th of March, both myself and Scott were interviewed. And it was just right at the beginning of this bubble of this challenge, but really asking about, framing up the question on a channel called SMB Nation. And we'll put that out on we'll share that with this group as well, because you could certainly push that forward. It's pretty short, tight, sweet about what we were looking for in terms of making a call for devices specifically. So I certainly can do that, and then we'll definitely go back into a huddle after this and see if we can't take the information we're going to put on the website and potentially make some sort of a call to action video that you guys could share. Great idea. Chris
Good.
Mendelson is asking yet again. So thank you, Chris, for the additional ask. He said COVID precautions. He's saying no cash, no application. People stand in line outside our door 6 feet apart. Call inside our office where we screen and take payment over the phone, only credit debit. And then they walk the receipt in the computer on a table 6 feet from the client, and then the client picks it up and takes it. No incoming donations of computers or repairs happening with his organization at this time. I do know that some of our other after members have some quarantine time where when they're taking the donations, they're keeping that product segregated and quarantined for a recommended period of time inside their warehouses before they actually work on it and distribute it. So there's some great information that we can, again, continue to share from our after members.
Good. Well, I think this is probably a good place to stop. And I just want to thank all of you once again for joining us. This recording will be made available. And also check your emails, because tomorrow the survey will be released. The dates of the town halls will be released. We definitely want to gather this group together and have two-way conversation. We need to hear from you. And I think that conversation will be great as you play off each other as well. And so thank you all very, very much. I wish you all the best. Stay safe, and we'll see you on our next gathering. Thank you.
Perfect.